Hey, you, I was thinking about you, and guess what I thought? I think it's time for you to soar. I want to welcome you to It's Time to Soar podcast, where we get unstuck with me, Coach Katina. My name's Katina Robertson, and I am thrilled that you joined us for our inaugural episode of It's Time to Soar. Let me tell you a little bit about me. Listen, I spent 20 plus years in the corporate sector, in the pharmaceutical biotech industry. And my first couple of years, I kind of waffled around. I struggled a bit. And I took some time to figure out what was making it so that I couldn't grow. I couldn't advance. There were some things that were my blind spots, and they were just that. They were blind spots, things that I didn't realize were holding me back, things that were baggage, things that I brought with me from my past experiences that changed my expectations. It muted my voice, all of these things. And on this journey in the It's Time to Soar podcast, we are going to explore all of those. I can't wait to unpack my experiences, tell you what I've learned, and share with you some of my colleagues that are experts in different fields that will help us. The journey we're about to go on is one like you've not been on before. And I'm so glad you found me, and I'm so glad I found you, because I am ready to soar together. Today, we're talking about the power of continuous growth. It sounds like a buzzword right now, continuous growth, but it's something that, believe it or not, a lot of professionals don't think about. You know why? Because we get comfortable. We get stuck. We find ourselves stuck. I'm reminded of a story of a tour guide who worked at a museum. Now, the museum had indoor floors and exhibits, and also kind of like a safari type outdoor exhibit. Now, this particular tour guide, she had a group of students with her, and she's walking and she's talking. And 10 minutes into the outdoor part, one of the children said, "Hey, lady." She, annoyed, said, "Yes." And he said, "You realize we've passed this tree 3 times. Do you realize that we've really literally seen the same tree 3 times? A little startled, a little embarrassed, a little shaken up, the tour guide looked around, and pride set in and denial set in, and she made an excuse. And he said, No, I'm looking at the map. We've seen this tree before." And the tour guide was keenly aware that she was stuck in a loop. She was stuck in a cycle. And you say, well, that's her job. How could she mess that up? But think about it. How many times have we found ourselves stuck in a rut? She's done this before. You said that. You probably thought, she does this all day. This is what you're paid to do. How many times have you found yourself doing what you're paid to do, but doing it in such a way that you can almost do it with your eyes closed? In fact, some of us say that, and that's what she was doing. She found herself in a loop where she was not bringing any additional value to the job, and the job obviously was not bringing any additional value to her. Have you ever been in a situation where you found yourself in a cycle? How long did it take you to get out? And what was it that took you to realize, hey, I'm in a cycle, I'm in a loop, I'm stuck? It's important in this journey. If we're going to go on this journey, if we're going to talk about continuous growth, it's important that we cast our pride to the side, that we are willing to be open and vulnerable with our own selves and understand where we are. So think about a couple of limiting cycles. It's important that we identify any limiting cycles that we have in our lives. And I'll ask you, is there a lack of advancement in your life? I remember there was a role that I was not in that role very long, but I was in the role. And when I realized there was nowhere to go, I became bored, disengaged, and I was not putting my all into the role. And I had to find somewhere where I could contribute. But it took a while before I realized why on Sunday afternoon I dreaded the next day. And then there are other cycles that could be limiting, such as repeated mistakes or procrastination. If you find yourself always putting off what needs to be done, then you find yourself staying up all night, trying to compensate for time that should have been better spent, or the dreaded hitting the ceiling in your leadership development. Sometimes if you don't have a good employee that can pull you to the side and say, hey, I need more, You can be the same leader year after year, day after day, week after week, month after month, and never get the fulfillment. It's important that you identify limiting cycles in your life. Why? It's important that you recognize them. And if you recognize them early enough, you can break them before they break you. Today, we're talking about the power of continuous growth. And I just want to level set so that we're all on the same page. What do I mean by continuous growth? So the Oxford Dictionary defines growth as it relates to professional development as the process of developing or maturing physically, mentally, and or spiritually. So it's leveling up, basically. It's not staying the same. It is moving forward. And listen, until we leave this earth, there is room to grow. Would you agree? The other definition that Oxford gave us is the process of increasing in value or importance or worth. When you think about that, if something is in your life and it doesn't add value, it doesn't add importance, is it worth it? So let's talk about what that looks like, what growth is and what growth isn't. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that growth is promotion. Promotion does not equal growth. And we know that because you've seen some people get promoted that did not deserve to get promoted. And you know you talked about it at the water cooler. You know you discussed it. You know you've rolled your eyes when somebody that you should be managing actually led your team. And if that's the case, they may think they've developed or grown because they've been promoted. Promotion does not equal growth or increased responsibilities. We know that post-COVID, there was a big resignation, the great resignation, where people just decided they weren't coming back to work. People got scared, they got nervous, mental health became even more challenging and prevalent. And so now there were increased responsibilities on the folks that were left. Anybody a victim of that? That somebody had to do the work and you were there, left holding the bag, handling all of the things. What growth isn't is results. As I've seen people with great results and they are not very well developed, they're not extremely mature, but the work had to get done and they got it done. And last but not least, growth is not financial success. Financial success is wonderful, but if you haven't grown, if you haven't matured, if you haven't developed, then you're still at a stagnant place and you have the potential to be at a stagnant place. So walk with me on this journey. If I want to grow and I'm encouraging you to grow, we have to be honest with each other. We've got to get through the denial and understand where we are. And I think about John Maxwell, and he said, you must know yourself to grow yourself. A lot of times, people are not self-aware. That's putting it mildly, right? A couple names came to your mind. And you immediately thought of a couple people that are so not self-aware that it hurts. You don't love to go to their meetings. You don't love to work on projects with them. You just watch the show as they walk around blundering through life, incredibly non-self-aware. Self-awareness is a key to recognizing these cycles. Because self-awareness, as part of emotional intelligence, it helps you understand, how do I impact people? How do people impact me? What do they think about me? When I say things, what's happening to the room? Did the energy go up? Did the energy go down? What did I say? Was it right? Was it wrong? You're just aware. You're not paranoid, but you're self-aware of how you interact with the universe and the universe interacts with you and any changes that happen as a result. So ask yourself, what challenges do I keep seeing over and over and over again? You ever know the person who dates the same person over and over and over again, just a different name? We all have that relative, that cousin, that sister, that brother, that you're like, oh my gosh, this is just Bob again with brown hair, right? And they're stuck in a cycle and they're not self-aware, and they're also not aware of how they get to places over and over and over again. It's important for you to be self-aware in the point that you are willing to change, adjust, or pivot as needed so that you can develop, so that you can grow. And back to the definition, so that you can mature emotionally, spiritually, physically. Breaking cycles is important, but it takes a growth mindset. And I know, I get it. That's a buzzword. Everybody uses growth mindset and everybody assumes that they have one. But let's be honest. We all probably have an area in our minds that we're not fully open to growth. And it could be as small as like going to a restaurant and ordering the same thing every time, or going to every restaurant and always ordering the exact same thing. You have those friends that you go out. You can, if they're running late or they're parking the car, you can order for them because you know they will not deviate. Or maybe you've worked on a project with someone where you want to try some new ideas or someone brings something up, but if it's not broken, they don't want to fix it. Well, guess what? Innovation doesn't mean that it was broken. It just means there's an opportunity to improve. So it's going to take a growth mindset. And it's important that you understand where you are with that. And learners that are continuously learning are the best leaders because they adapt to change. They are able to bring the team along. They are able to cause there to be greater results. When you begin to adopt the growth mindset, you've got to also be willing to unlearn some things. And listen, I will tell you, even in my marriage, in the beginning, I was right even when I was wrong. And I would say that. And I thought that was so funny. And I always had to be right because what I brought to the table was my experience. What I brought to the table was my perspective. But what I found was there are different ways to do things and arrive to the same result or an even better result. Go figure. Oh my gosh, the blow to my ego was huge, but I had to get in a growth mindset that some of the things that I learned might not have been the best things. It got me through, but I had to be willing to unlearn anything that didn't serve me and potentially keep me stifled. I have some examples. Listen, it's not just you and it's not just me, but many people start out with factors and things that they were born into that would threaten to ruin them, threaten to cause them to complete the same cycle over and over and over, but they didn't. An example is Oprah Winfrey. If you've ever heard her story, Oprah tells about how she was abused in poverty, sexually abused, verbally abused. They said she'd never be anything. And she had to struggle with the results of that, the low self-esteem and the struggles in her mind of hearing over and over that she'd never amount to anything. But what did she do? She focused on education. Oh, I'm going to learn myself out of this situation, and self-development. Oh, no. There's got to be something good in there. And when she would fall down, she would get up and try again. So there was self-perseverance. Do you know that Oprah learned to transform her whole personality and mindset? And she is the biggest household name, not just in America, but internationally. Had she stuck with what she was born in, had she stuck with what was going on in her life and the kind of the cycle that was laid out before her, we would never have gotten to know her. And then Howard Schultz. I don't know if you know that name or not, but Howard Schultz is the CEO of Starbucks. And he grew up in a poor neighborhood and he joined Starbucks, but he wasn't the CEO. But then when he became the CEO, he noticed that there were significant challenges and he needed to scale the business. I mean, we know there's a Starbucks almost at every exit. Starbucks gets prime time on the exit ramp. You will go 3 exits away to get a Starbucks if you need to, because it's that important, it's that prominent. But there was a time where he saw that Starbucks was veering away from its core values. It was losing sight of what was important. And he took a bold move. He had to silence what anybody would have to say about him, step back, and refocus. And when he did that, he got back on mission. And amid the whispers, amid the talk, amid the fear, amid the anxiety, he was able to break the cycle and bring Starbucks to what we see today, the coffee giant that we know that it is. My last example, Steve Jobs. Because some of us are in a similar cycle. He was outed from the company that he co-founded. Let's talk about embarrassment, public humiliation, anger, frustration, the whole cycle of emotions. It's a low point in his career. But instead of giving up, he took that experience and he learned from it. He founded Nexit, and then he acquired Pixar. And when he finally returned to Apple, he was a different person. Same person, but his experiences shaped him to a place where he could take Apple to a height that it wouldn't have been able to go to had he not gone through that. What are you willing to go through? What are you willing to overcome? What are you willing to unlearn in order to become the best version of yourself and bring immeasurable success? You know what they had in common? They made a decision. Some of you might be going through some of that pain right now. Some of you might be stuck. Some of you might feel embarrassed, humiliated, feel like you're going nowhere. But I want you to know if there's breath in your body, you still have time to do something different and make a decision. Make a decision to pivot. Make a decision to change. Make a decision to unlearn some of the things that may have you stuck. So what they did was they observed and understood where they were. It's going to take self-awareness. It's going to take you understanding this is where I am. This is a challenge for me. It's limiting me, and I am willing to lose it to gain more. They took action. So I just want to leave you with a couple of clues. I want to leave you with a couple of things that you can do to help you pivot. In the next couple of weeks, I want you to try something out. I want you to pause and reflect before you take action or after you've taken action. Look back on what you did, what you thought, what you said. Be mindful of the energy in the room. Be mindful of the body language of the person with whom you're speaking. Recall your actions and your behaviors and start to look for patterns. You can do that by journaling. Start to write down how meetings went. Pause. I remember when I was getting married, the folks around me were so excited and leading up to the wedding day, and a wise bride gave me the best advice. She said, stop by every detail and take it in. Look at the little kids dancing on the floor. Look at the food. Look at the flowers. Look at the smiles on people's faces and take it all in. That was some of the best advice because a lot of times we get right into our program and we miss clues. But you becoming the best version of yourself means taking inventory of what's going on right now, becoming self-aware. Break the cycles that you see forming that don't serve you so that you can serve your best. The next thing I think is really important, and it takes a stretch, is to implement accountability. Solicit feedback. I know, I said it. It's a dirty word. Solicit feedback. If you're a leader, implement it in your team. Ask questions. How are we doing? How could we do that better? I know that's a big step, but it speaks volumes. It opens up the room. It brings psychological safety to your team where they feel valued enough to bring their opinion and that they value you enough to give you honest feedback. And if you want one-on-one, that's even better. Get one-on-one accountability, a mentor, somebody that can help give you tips and somebody that can watch you perform and help give you the blind spots. And celebrate the wins. You're not doing everything wrong. You're not doing everything bad or poorly. You may not even be doing anything wrong. But if there are areas where you can tweak and you see that you've changed, let's celebrate that. John Maxwell considers growth is changing one thing about yourself every day. Seems huge, but one little thing amounts to massive change, massive improvement, massive growth. You are a giant, and sometimes giants get stuck in cycles. And I want you to be the best that you absolutely can be. So make sure that you have a safe space, somebody you can bounce ideas off of. Hey, I want to say this, and this is how I want to say it. And they'll say, you're going to shut the room down, or, oh, you're going to open up the room, or wait, hold off. They can give you direction and guidance, and you can take your ideas and your contributions to the next level. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy. Implementing a growth mindset, changing things that you've been probably doing for years. It's not easy, and you'll want to feel bad about yourself. I am telling you, you've got this. You need to be resilient. It's tough, but you've got to keep the end in mind. Forgetting the stuff that's right in front of you. You got to look to what's coming up. You've got to visualize it. I know that sounds really, really corny, But what do you look like in this next level? What do you look like having broken out of the cycle? Keep looking to the end, verbalize the results, say what you want, and visualize yourself enjoying the results of your hard labor. It's worth the work because inside of you is even greater. And it's almost selfish for you to keep that greatness all to yourself. So let's unlock the cycles and get you to the next level. I think about what George Bernard Shaw said. He said, some men see things as they are and they ask why, but others dream things that never were and they ask why not. I want you to know that greatness is in you. We are ready to experience your greatness. And when a negative thought comes up, I need you to dream big and say, why not? And not just why not me?